Call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Excuse me, Eastward Alderman John Flynn.
Here.
Eastward Alderman J.C. Cunningham.
Here.
Mayor Natalie McNish.
Here.
Westward Alderman Travis Shaw.
Here.
Westward Alderman Stacy Lee.
Here. If you would please rise for a moment of silent prayer or reflection, followed by the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Board members, the minutes from May 12th, 22 are in your packet. Are there any comments, questions, or concerns with the information presented? If not, I'm looking for a motion and a second for approval.
Make a motion. Thanks.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next in your packet is the expenditures and financial reports, and you also have a supplemental claims on your table. Monica has highlighted the Great River Engineering payment, which is the final invoices for the TEEP grant. Is there anything else in this specifically you wanted to call out?
I would say the only thing would be for the supplemental is there's a cash check in there for cash, and it's specifically for the parks for their cash store at the pool that's opening on Saturday. So, and I think that's probably the only thing that point out.
Okay. Any questions or comments with the reports? If not, I'm looking for a motion and a second for approval.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Boards, committee, and commission reports. We'll go through this fairly quickly. Planning and zoning, we actually have the information today that's being presented that was in our planning and zoning meeting, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time with that. We'll let Steve catch us up there. Cemetery board has not met yet, needs a meeting though. Okay, so cemetery board will be meeting soon. By statute, they have to meet and elect their board. Finance advisory has not met yet. They'll pick up more in the fall. We may try to kick to them a reserve policy at some point. Park board.
Yes. Thanks for letting me touch base with you all today. May is a huge month for parks. We're closing out spring leagues and programs like our successful adult softball, youth soccer, and youth volleyball programs. We closed those out, managed to get all the games in spite of the weather, which was crazy this spring. I mean, it's always crazy in Missouri, but it was exceptionally crazy this spring. Even, I mean, today,
It's
just
exceptionally crazy
yeah,
right now.
look out there. But for this weekend, it's supposed to be sunny and hot for the pool opening. So we'll take that for sure. Then we finalize and usher in our summer programs, including our aquatics, which is set to open on Saturday. Aquatics definitely takes the most energy, and you all know we don't have a dedicated aquatics director, but here in Marshfield, we do aquatics by committee. So all the park staff, all of us were involved, have been involved, you know, for a couple of months now, but our water department guys, our street guys, our inmate program, Karen puts her HR hat on, and with all the hiring and getting people on board, our part-timers, even Sam was going to go out to the pool and help me put the repair paint down if I needed him to. It's all hands on deck getting that pool ready to go, and I think that we're ready to open on Saturday at noon. In fact, Richard and his crew just installed the new pump and motor for the yellow slide, the closed slide today. And I went out there, it's functioning, it's on, it's working, everything's working just like it should so far. We started May out with a park board meeting. We put together an add-on package for the safe room restrooms to be part of a rental package if somebody needs restrooms, especially, you know, for those some of those larger events. we can close those off completely for the rest of the safe room and rent those out and put a good enough deposit down on those that they'll be motivated to make sure that they're returned in good condition. But I think that's a service that will help our community out, especially some of those rentals that come before we're able to winterize those restrooms. We opened space at the LSO Jackson for people to participate in the citywide garage sale, which was last weekend. You know, the weather was terrible, but we did have a few takers on that, and we will definitely expand upon that for next year. It's neat because it's in conjunction with the spring clean, and the spring clean is now down there at the fairgrounds at LSO Jackson as well. So even if someone were to leave all their trash behind or something of that nature, we've got dumpsters, we've got staff, we've got a means to clean that up, pretty efficiently. So that's a new service that we extended. And we are working diligently on a refund policy for parks for all of our different programs that we've expanded and things like that. We're looking to other communities, and the park board and aquatic staff and city staff are working on a refund policy to put in place there. This next meeting will be on June 7th, and we will have Chris Hurt and the newly formed Marshfield Action Sports Syndicate. And they are putting some energy behind that. So if you hear about this in the community, I was just at a Rotary Club meeting, and he was there at the Rotary Club meeting. He was at the Chamber of Commerce meeting. So they're really kind of pushing some things. They'd like to see a skate park and a pump track come in, and they're going to speak to the park board on June 7th. I had the privilege to speak to the Optimist Club in April and give an update, Rotary Club last week, and then the Chamber of Commerce this past Monday, and tell people all the neat things that are going on in parks. It feels really good to see people excited and energized about what we're doing. We got the biggest compliment I want to share with you all. We as a city got the biggest compliment. They said a couple of years ago, you came and talked about all the things that you wanted to do. And now you come and talk, and we see you doing those things that you talked about wanting to do. We see them being done in our community. And that was a huge compliment, and a testament to everything that's going on here in the city. We'll finish up tomorrow morning with a aquatic staff training. For our summer team, we've hired over 60 people, lifeguards, swim team coaches, swim lessons, concessions, umpires for our programs, over 60 people. We put out the advertisements for those. We brought people in, did interviews, have had training. 27 people went through our lifeguard certification class, including our full-time rec specialist, Megan Dinwiddie. She is now a certified lifeguard. So if we need her, and she has familiarity with what's going on out there now too. So that was a pretty neat thing. She's also kind of taken the lead on our youth ball program this summer. Registration closed yesterday, and we have over 350 participants in our youth baseball program. I think that's the most effort that I can find records for. And I was worried that registration was going to be low. I mean, there's so much competition out there. Everybody's doing club balls. And I mean, there's like 20 different club baseball teams in town. And because we're renting out our fields anytime it's dry enough to play, somebody's out there practicing on them. But over 350 people. And we've got a couple of teams coming in. And these aren't club teams, they're rec teams, because Stratford couldn't put a rec program together. Fordland couldn't put a rec program together. So they called us. A couple of years ago, we were looking to other people to tag on to their stuff. And now people are wanting to tag on to our stuff. And that's really neat too. That's a good feeling that we'll be able to provide a home base for them, a good program. They'll be able to bring some of their rec kids in and participate, which gives our kids more opportunity as well. So yeah, it's really neat things going on here. Really quick, I know I've been talking for a while, but I want to give a website update. That's parks and it's city and parks both. But we've been meeting regularly, Sam, and Steve, and Melanie, and myself. talking with Natalie and keeping her in the loop on some of the stuff that's been going on. We've been meeting regularly, putting together, the website features that we like and design ideas and filling out forms and paperwork for Civic Plus to start to put together a package. Well, yesterday we had a meeting. That was yesterday, wasn't it? It feels like a week ago, doesn't it? We had a meeting with our design staff from Civic Plus, and we had a design discovery meeting, and they walked us through several of the websites that we reported on, and we said, oh, we love this and we don't like this so much, and we want this feature, but we want it this way, and oh, we like this calendar, but we need to do X, Y, and Z. They took down all of our notes and things, and they're going to come back with some package ideas for us, but that got the ball rolling on this. With the timeline that we have, it looks like that we'll launch sometime early in fall. It looks like around September, sometime in September. We'll have all of our training should be completed sometime in October. So before the end of the year, we should be self-sustaining on this website and fully operational. It's exciting.
If you guys can't tell, Parks Department's firing on all cylinders right now. I went back there a little bit today and yesterday a little bit. Mark's been having some computer issues, and I'm telling you, just the environment in that room is, if you haven't been in there, I challenge you to walk in there and look. And I mean, they are cramped in this little bitty space and just on top of each other, and all their stuff's on top of everything. But I'll tell you, as you can tell from what Mark just went through, I mean, they've got it together, and they're going about as fast as you can possibly go for 3 people. So it's been really exciting to watch and to visit with him as they've got this stuff up and going.
Awesome. Thank you, Mark. Are there any questions on that report from the board? Okay, the other board or committee that we'll report on is GROW. GROW Marshfield met the first of this month. We were able to meet with the representative from the Taney County Economic Development Group. Learned a lot from him about how their organization is structured, how it's funded, different ideas they have that we may be able to piggyback on and really make our own and start doing some, I'm kind of excited to really start growing GROW. That sounds a little funny, but anyway, so more to come. We've got another meeting just in the next week, actually next week,
Next Wednesday.
to continue talking about, what this new development would be. And of course, we do still have GROW on the calendar to come back and talk to us in June. I think it's the second meeting in June.
I think so.
Okay.
Just a meeting.
So the next update will come from Dwayne himself instead of me. So, and that was your park report as well?
Yes.
That's on here, okay. So that brings us to unfinished business, but I would like to ask permission to bring number 1 on new business up to the front so that our guests don't have to sit through the entire meeting. Do you have board approval with that? Okay, then we'll let Steve have the floor.
Okay. So what you have in front of you, you have a survey of this piece of property. And this is at the corner of Hubble Drive and Briarwood Drive. And it is the final plat of lot 11 of the Haley edition and lot 5 of the Case Lakeview edition, putting it together to become the Perkins subdivision. Okay, so what they have done is they purchased that lot 5 and that was before you previously to get approval. They purchased that and it was broken off from the rest of that Case Lakeview subdivision. They would like to add that lot to their existing lot that they own on Briarwood Drive so that they may construct an accessory building on that, which we will talk about that if and when this is approved. So because of the situation with that lot, it made it difficult to keep it as a separate lot and more expensive to get sewer to it because of where the sewer is on Briarwood, or there was sewer in behind, but it was long ways down. And so after talking to the owners, Scott and Jennifer, then they decided that this would be the approach that they'd like to take to bring this to the board to combine these 2 lots. This has gone through planning and zoning, voted to move this to the board for approval, and staff also had agreed for approval of this. So are there any questions that you have about joining the two lots?
Okay, if there are no questions, I'll read the bill on adjoining these two lots. Bill number 2022-20, an ordinance approving the final plat of Perkins Addition, a subdivision in Marshfield, Webster County, Missouri.
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Quinn.
Aye.
Boggs.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Cunningham.
Second reading, bill number 2022-20, an ordinance approving the final plat of Perkins Addition, a subdivision in Marshfield, Webster County, Missouri.
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Quinn.
Aye.
Boggs.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Cunningham.
All right, and we'll go on to number 2 in this since it's the same topic.
Okay. So the second part of this is, and it was included in staff discussion, that they would like to add a building that's going to be 48 by 64, which is approximately 3,000 square feet. Anything over 1,200 square feet that is built in the city has to come before the Board of Aldermen for approval. That's part of our, written in our code. So that's why they're here to ask permission to build this 48 by 64 building. This building will be set, and on your survey, you can see where there once was a concrete, well, there is a concrete foundation. There was a barn there. They took it down. And this will roughly be adjacent to that location to the east. Okay, so that it's going to be setting back on the property back in that area. That allows them to connect to sewer from the residents a lot easier, and water from the residents a lot easier. So that's what they are asking to do, and they just need permission from the board to do that.
And the access to that building will come off Briarwood Drive
Yes.
rather than Hubble.
Okay. Any questions from Alderman?
How big is it all now, the whole thing?
Say what?
How large is that lot now?
111,454 square feet. We allow a 1,200 with no question on a 10,000. So and this is 3,000. So it's 2.5% bigger than what we allow anywhere. But they've got
But it's 3 times bigger.
11, they've got 11 times the size lot that we allow. So
Okay.
proportion wise, it's insignificant.
I thought in planning and zoning, I thought we changed where like the shop, like if you had an outbuilding, it was off the square footage of your house. Did we not we never changed that?
That is, unless you come to the Board of
Oh,
Aldermen.
That's the
and
reason
ask
they're here
permission.
today.
So yes, you are right. Okay,
As long as it was, they just had to come to board Alderman on that.
yes.
Okay.
So if it was over that, and that is also in your packet where it's section 410.010, accessory buildings and uses. And so that's where it talks about 1,200 square feet gross floor area is the max unless approved by the Board of Aldermen. So that's why they're here. Okay.
Any other questions from board members? I'm looking for a motion.
Community pool. though, remember? Neighborhood pool.
I'm looking for a motion and a second on approval.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
You're welcome to stay. All right, I get it. Okay, let's back up to unfinished business, please. And item number 1 is appointment of a new police officer. I discussed this with you at the last meeting, but the new officer had to graduate before we could actually appoint the officer. So he has been sworn in. Doug, you want to say anything about our new officer?
He's been on for a week and a half.
Yeah.
So doing good for a new guy.
All right. So I am looking for approval to appoint our new police officer.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. ARPA funding application update.
Yeah, so I'll start off in here and Monica can correct me where I step on my tongue here, but so we've been talking with you guys about the application and we kind of had an overall large scale project that we said, hey, if we could get a hold of $10 to $12 million, this is what we would do with it. Since we visited last time, they've come out with a new criteria of what is actually allowed and what they're actually going to fund. And so the maximum they're going to fund is going to be up to $5 million per application. You get one application. So kind of takes that larger corridor of expanding into this area and to this area out of the realm and out of what we can afford to do. It also, I'm not looking for any approval tonight or anything. This will come back to you for approval, but you get no additional points for anything over 20% match. And so we're looking at some of these, some of this as not only expansion possibilities, but also to take care of the issues that we have. So really what it's going to boil down to, based off of the cost estimates, is probably going to be taking lift station 6 offline and running that gravity sewer and getting that bore underneath the interstate, and then spending the rest of the dollars down at the plant. Now, what that includes is because we're in the exploratory portion of what's going on at the plant, what the possibilities are. We've just set aside $2.5 million for the plant. I have no idea if that could come back as 4, it could come back as 1. I don't know, but we kind of earmarked internally about $2.5 million if we're awarded the $5 million, for 2.5 of that to be spent at the plant. I just wanted to kind of give you guys an update tonight to say, hey, don't be surprised when this comes back. And we had talked about doing stuff out by Walmart. We had talked about doing stuff here and talked about doing stuff here. It looks like it's going to be a much smaller project, but by doing so, you guys will remember in that capacity study that that main trunk line going down to the plant is over capacity. Well, that's because there's 4 or 5 lift stations that dump into 6. So they from there, then they pump over the hill and then they pump into this main trunk line. If we can get lift station 6 offline and bore under and take it directly to the treatment plant and make the treatment plant handle it, then that's 5 lift stations now that does not go to that trunk line. So it takes a major capacity issue off of a line that's already sitting at 110 to 130% capacity on most normal days. So it's a big deal to be able to get that bore underneath there. And so if we're fortunate enough to get awarded, then I think that it'll be a fantastic approach for not only development in that area, but for our plant as well. Application deadline, it opened May 16th and it's due July 14th. There's no bonus points. There's no brownie points for getting it in any earlier than the 14th. So we are looking to get it done either the last meeting in June or the first meeting in July. We don't want to be up against the deadline, but just kind of giving you a reference point for time.
Okay, any questions on our ARPA application? Fantastic. Next item up is the speed limit change for North Elm.
So I apologize, I wasn't here at the last meeting, but Great River Engineering was here to go over the TEEP study for 2022, which included Elm Street, Hubble, Pine, and Marshall. So through that, when we got Elm Street paved, we were working on everything off of projection. Well, our code says that speed limit will be 30 unless otherwise posted. So in order to get it up and get it going and not knowing the traffic counts, not knowing what it actually called for by design, we wanted to just go ahead and get a speed limit set up there. So we put up 30. The speed study actually came back and said 35. I think that they went over that with you. And so in order to do so, we've got to call that out by ordinance. So the next thing on your agenda is the ordinance to do so. I will tell you that I talked to Doug and I sent over a letter to MoDOT. They were asking for a letter of support. Basically, they're looking at that new corridor, that new CC corridor, and they have determined that the 40-mile-an-hour set on that is too slow. So they're looking to change that to 55 which is more appropriate. So they have to go through certain things to be able to do that. One of those is they have to have a letter from the local city for that stretch to go through there. So I went ahead and sent them, after conversing with Doug, I see no reason why it wouldn't be 55. It's 55 once you get away from the city and there's nothing developed out there. Obviously, we don't have any say so in bringing it back down, but when things develop, I mean, that's something the MoDOT will have to take into consideration as well. I just wanted to kind of throw that out there for your information. We don't have any say so, but I did want to be transparent and let you know that I did send a letter over saying I support the 55.
Any questions on the ordinance before us? Okay, I will read the bill. Bill number 2022-19, an ordinance to amend Schedule 1, Title 3 of the Municipal Code of the City of Marshfield, Missouri, being a section of the municipal code regulating maximum speed limits on city streets by changing the speed limit on North Elm from East Hubble Drive to Highway CC.
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call.
Sorry. Quinn.
Aye.
Boggs.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Cunningham.
Aye.
Second reading, Bill number 2022-19, an ordinance to amend Schedule 1, Title 3 of the Municipal Code of the City of Marshfield, Missouri, being a section of the municipal code regulating maximum speed limits on city streets by changing the speed limit on North Elm from East Hubble Drive to Highway CC.
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Quinn.
Aye.
Boggs.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Cunningham.
All right. We'll fast forward now to item number 3 on unfinished or new business, excuse me. And there is a list of liquor license included in your packet. Are there any questions or comments on these? Karen, anything we need to know specifically? Not, I'm looking for a motion and a second for approval.
So the access and always is temporary for now until.
So they're. Yeah, I don't
We're
understand.
waiting for license period.
So they're paying for 13 months, basically.
They are, yes. And so I actually made 2 different licenses because I don't like to write it. I know that's anal, but that's just the way. I
Okay.
just like to make it the way that it is. And so I wrote one
For the snippet before the new year and then the new year.
Yeah.
So theirs isn't a renewal, right? It's a new one or?
Theirs is a new and then a renewal.
Okay.
That's why they're on both lists.
Right. Correct.
Okay. Looking for a motion and a second.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
All right. Request authorization to apply for the TAP grant.
So not actually asking for requesting a vote tonight, but I do want to, it will be back on here for you guys to approve because of our policy here at the city. You guys have to approve any grant before we apply. But I did want to take an opportunity to explain to you what is going on and what the TAP grant is and what we're actually looking to apply for this time. So the TAP grant, which is a transportation alternative program, is for bike and pedestrian or walkways for specific projects other than vehicle traffic. So the last TAP project that we did was on the square. So the bump outs and the sidewalks and the drainage, that was what we were able to get federal funding for the last time that we were awarded. Now, there were different phases of that we've applied for since that we weren't awarded because it is a highly competitive grant. But this year, MoDOT has rolled out with, they've upped the maximum that they will pay out to 500,000. And they have tripled the amount that is in the fund that they can award. So I really expect for there to be a lot of applications that roll in. I do think for what we are looking to accomplish with it, I think that we've got a very strong application because some of these other committees and some of these other boards that I sit on with SimCog, sitting on a separate TAC committee for them, North Elm Street, so from basically the football field, there's a sidewalk that from there you can connect to the high school, you can connect to the square, all the way out to the spur, down here to City Hall. But going north, it just stops at the school, right? Well, then now we have this new CC corridor out there where we've spent a lot of money on a trailway system out there now. Our contractors are actually out there working, trying to get the other one in until they'll quit raining. They have poured some concrete on it, but it's well underway. But this would be to connect that trailway to the junior high or to approximately the football field. And then quite possibly, depending on where the cost estimates roll in, along Julian Street, behind the baseball field, basically from Julian and Elm over to Locust, right? The overall goal, and you'll see this when it all comes out in the transportation plan, is for it to tie on over into Pine Street and then back down Pine Street into Washington, which connects into the same sidewalk network that goes everywhere else. But for this project, we're looking at applying for up to the $500,000, which our match portion of that, by the time you do all the math on it and how it works, our max out of pocket, what we'd be looking at if we just utilize those dollars, we don't have to go beyond, we'd be looking at spending around $270,000 out of the transportation fund. Those funds are there if that's how we choose, if that's how you guys choose to fund them or to spend them. I won't know for probably another couple of weeks, probably, where those cost estimates are going to come in. Right now, I don't know, if you take it that way, you're looking at a $770,000 project. I would like to think that all that could be done for under that. But by the time you talk about right-of-way acquisition, by the time you talk about construction, I mean, we're talking about bidding all of this out. We could very well be looking at that number to get, depending on how broad we want to make it. If it's less than that, obviously that's what we would be looking to contribute. Now, the reason that dollar amount is that high is that you get the maximum amount of points for the grant for anything above 35 for 36% or over, right? So we wouldn't go in for 37% or above because you don't get any more than the 5 points on the application. If it's under 35%, then you get 3 points. If it's under 25%, I think you get 2 points, and yada, yada, yada. With this being so competitive, we're going to have to put skin in the game. Not saying we have to be aggressive and put the 35% in, but it definitely ups your odds of getting it. So along with that, when we're talking about that corridor, and you guys can picture it in your mind, and I don't care to pull it up if we need to, and I will when I actually bring the actual application to you. But you have in front of you, you have a letter that we've put together that will go out to the property owners along Elm Street, and don't dial in too much into the weeds about the actual wording. I wanted to give you kind of a heads up. That's something that we kind of kicked around today and yesterday. I haven't finalized it, but this is something that'll go out to the property owners along those corridors. Because two things, you've got, if you go down North Elm Street from, well, just say from the baseball field, if you look down through there, you've got very mature trees on both sides, right? More prominent on the west side. And those houses actually sit closer to the road than the ones do on the east side. So you could be talking about possibly taking out those trees if you go on that side. Or you go on the other side and there's not as many trees and the houses are set further back. However, on a busy street like Elm Street and Golf Course Road, by jogging back and forth, and we have that now you're inviting people to cross that road multiple times, right? And so I've actually already signed a work order with Great River to start this TAP application. It's about $1,000, up to $1,000. The reason being, we have to, if we want to use our current transportation engineers, we have to pay them to help us with the application. If they do it for free, they're not eligible to work on the grant. So they started that process, and there will be certain design standards that they will follow down through there. But we're going to have a kind of a neighborhood or a community forum for this area. We're proposing to have it on June 16th, which I would absolutely invite you to. And I think that we would like your guys' presence and your input. It's not going to be you're not going to see a presentation at that meeting though. What you're going to see is you're going to see little stations set up and booths set up. Kind of, if any of you were involved in the vision casting, it'll be something very similar to where you come in and there'll be exhibits set up, and Elm Street will be highlighted. Julian Street will be highlighted. You'll see an exhibit showing existing sidewalks, future conceptual sidewalks, which again tie back to the transportation plan, which will come back to you guys for approval. And then people will be given comment cards and an opportunity to kind of give their feedback on their questions or concerns, what they're favoring, what they're in favor of, what they're not in favor of. But the reality is that we acknowledge, staff acknowledges for sure, and I'm sure that you guys do too, there's a lot of foot traffic that goes beyond from the school towards Rockwood Dental, and they're walking in the street. There's a lot of pedestrians. There's a lot of people that jog that corridor and down Golf Course Road. And so by us acknowledging that, I think that we have an obligation to try to do something with that corridor. But the public forum actually also goes into the scoring criteria. So there's a portion in there that asks, have you had public engagement? Have you had public involvement? And so that will go in our favor as well on the application. Again, I don't have a dollar amount. I'm not looking for a vote, but I did want to make sure and get it out in front of you that this is something that we're actively seeking. And I mean, if there's a time, if you guys just say, hey, you need to walk away from it, now would be the time before we start having these meetings. But I would invite you to the meeting if it does take place on the 16th, and that'll be from 5 to 7 at night.
So there's no determination yet which side of the road.
Nope.
No, and it's
Both
intentional,
sides.
and it's intentional that way, right? Because I mean, those people down through there, in the end, without pulling a survey, which we'll have to in design, those trees, half of them are probably in our right of way anyway. So they're ours. I mean, if they die, we're going to take them out, which they will at some point. But there's some sensitivity, right? We were talking a little bit before the meeting, but there's trees are always a sensitive subject, especially grown, mature trees. But when you're talking about long term, it's not always the trees can't always dictate where the improvements go. We got into this when we put the walkway with the safe routes to school, the enhancement grants down along Elm from there south, along with the water line that went down through there. And for any of you that were here at that time or remember, there were some very mature trees down through there, similar to what we're talking about up on the north end. And it was pretty controversial, right? I mean, the property owners understood it because they didn't want to give additional right of way, which these property owners will have the option or the opportunity to say, hey, move it up here out of the way far enough and it won't hurt my trees. They'll have the opportunity to, but it puts a sidewalk on what's in their front door if it goes on that side. So it has the opportunity to be a negative thing, but do the trees necessarily mean that we put it on the other side? Because the other people are going to say, well, why are you having them cross the road 3 or 4 times? So anyway, by design, no, we are not saying what side of the road is going on.
Is there a safety issue by the golf course?
No more than exists now.
You've seen my drive, yeah.
With, also with this, we're working with Mel to potentially put in a solar crosswalk, which we have talked about to cross Hubble.
Yep.
So that will be integrated into this project. So please check your calendars for that date, especially East Ward members. Those are our constituents and everybody is welcome and I encourage everybody to come, but East Ward, I'm looking for you because your neighbors are gonna need to talk to you on that evening.
We just want to get this letter to you before just surprising you, or you get phone calls on, what is this letter about? Well, I mean, you know, we won't have enough time to get the information back to you all. I mean, I can do it via email, but didn't really have an opportunity to visit about it because these timeframes on these grants are so short. It's not like we've sit on this. I mean, they come out with it, they announce it, hey, the deadline's here. And so that's why when we talk about just other grants or other projects being shovel ready or near shovel ready, if we have an idea, those preliminary designs and cost estimates, that's never a bad thing to have on the shelf just because of items like this. So yeah.
Sam, is it anywhere on our radar to extend the sidewalk system to my side?
Yeah,
There's
yes.
a lot of folks that walk
You're
down.
talking about down like in front of your
Yeah.
house?
No, on the other side, not in my yard.
Right. A little bit. We didn't, I'm trying to think. We talked about it a little bit, but I don't think that there's any identified in the transportation plan out West Washington. Doesn't mean that it can't be, right? That project is definitely not, I mean, it comes back to you all for approval anyway. But we did have some discussions about it, but no, not down through there because I can tell you why. because where would it tie into? Now, I'm not saying that part of the overall plan shouldn't be to take it down and then interconnect through Oak Grove and Prairie Lane and back around to Jefferson and then back to the spur. But right now, if we run a sidewalk down anything on that side of Hubble, there's nothing to tie it back to until you come back down, until you come back to the spur.
And that's actually a great segue. So one, we will mention again that we do not have a sidewalk master plan. That is not something we've ever developed, and that's not what the transportation plan is, even though we did talk about additional modalities. The second thing I will throw in here, because it was just a perfect segue, is that we would also really appreciate your presence at the transportation plan presentation, which occurs during the fair. To be exact, that's the
29th.
29th, yeah. It is the 29th at the fair, and we will be set up in front of the Centennial Building? Centennial?
No, I think it's
No.
in front of the kitchen.
In front of the kitchen.
I think the Lions Club has agreed to let us use the front of the kitchen that
The
night
front
for our
porch.
portion, yeah.
And so we'll be meeting with people and talking about what the plan is and getting their feedback. Sidewalks is a piece of that.
And SimCog will actually be kind of,
They'll be leading the charge on it.
hosting the booth, right? Because they're who we've hired to do the transportation plan. So, but just your guys' support and attendance, even if it's a come and go.
Yeah.
I mean, I think for you all as elected officials, I mean, you guys knowing the transportation plan, but also being there if people have questions or, being able to see a face with a name, I think that's worth something.
It's a small space. We don't all have to hang out together. And we are going to have members of that citizen-driven plan committee that's going to be there that night as well. So they know the most about what decisions were made in that process, and we'll let them lead the charge. But it's great to have all of you there if you're able.
And part of that transportation plan is the community input, right? They either have to do that or have to have a town hall meeting. They have to have something to engage the public.
The fair was convenient.
Yeah.
Very convenient, where we could go to the people.
I don't know if this is the right place or not, but during this plan and everything, is there any way we could extend, like getting that solar light down there at the end and in on this? A lot of people asking about that. It's dark down
I'm working on that. I don't know.
Okay.
We may not, it's not part of this,
Not
but
part of this,
I've actually got some emails on that yesterday.
there. Okay.
So I'm working on it.
Okay, so we plan to come back with a resolution after that public meeting. So it's going to be that June 23rd meeting. That way we will have heard at least a first round of our citizen input, and can use that knowledge to decide whether or not we're going forward with the resolution.
And I can't remember. I didn't write it down to have in my book tonight. Do you remember when the tap is due?
No,
It's
I don't.
it's a very quick turnaround. So the reason why we need to push this up to the 16th, if we can get everything going, and then have it back on your 23rd meeting, because Great River have to take the information from that, your guys' input, and then they have to turn it around. I want to say it's right there around that
1st of
mid-July.
July.
Yeah, I mean, it's right there. It's not very long. And so they've got to have room to put it in there, because that's why I needed to go ahead and start the work order for them to start, so they could start preliminary design and cost estimates, because there's just not enough time. But it is one of those plans that goes on the shelf. If we're not awarded, there are other grant opportunities, right? There's the Missouri Trails grant opportunities, there's LWCF grant opportunities. The design doesn't just go away. So whatever we spend, whatever we do up front, it's not a waste. The need is not going to go away, and I think the desire is not going to go away. So I think it's still going to be a very high priority. But I do think I think we got a pretty good opportunity if we stick the dollars with it to match it.
Says the application is due July 15th and it would be awarded September.
Any other questions for Sam or Monica or Steve? Throw you in there too. Okay, we will go on to the auction agreement.
So at the last meeting, I think you guys had discussed, we've talked about that property at 322 North Marshall. I think the consensus was to go ahead and move forward and surplus the property and sell it. And so I ran down those options that I think Natalie had explained at the last meeting. And so this is the contract that was put together by David Cucci. And so obviously it is entering into an agreement. It's a no cost to us. All the costs will be forwarded on to the purchaser. But because it is an agreement with a professional and with a real estate agent, you are in essence choosing David Cucci, and you are approving that by the agreement. And so there's a resolution approving that.
Any questions from board members? If not, I'll read the resolution. Resolution 2022-10, a resolution approving the terms and authorizing the mayor to sign a real estate auction agreement between Advantage Auction Services LLC and the city of Marshfield, Missouri on 322 North Marshall Street.
Move to approve.
All in favor? All right. And that brings us to future agenda items. So we do have things that were carried over from the last meeting that remain on future agenda items. I've told you about a few items during this meeting that will be popping up the end of June, including GROW. We'll have more discussion on the TAP grant. We'll have additional discussion on ARPA as it comes available. And then our staff are still working on the beekeeping conversation that was brought up by Alderman Quinn. Any additional things that are not on my radar?
Not additional, but I have been doing some of my own on the beekeeping. It's really amazing movement at what's going on across the country in big cities, small cities, everything. I don't know if it's going to come to Marshfield, I think sooner or later.
So if not, I am looking for a motion to go into closed session pursuant to section 610.21 subsection 3 regarding hiring, firing, disciplining, or promoting particular employees.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
I signed everything else.
Boggs.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Cunningham.
Aye.